Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, Text 41. This is the continuing discussion that Sukadeva Goswami is illuminating the frustrations and the difficulties of a person who is caught in material identification as the self. And this conversation has been going on for a couple chapters now. It was begun in the conversation between Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana, and now Sukadeva Goswami is directly explaining these difficulties. Previously, he repeated the conversation between Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana, and now he's directly telling, and it's the same. The verses are very similar because it's not different. The only thing that's different now is that instead of telling a story about someone else so his disciple can hear, he's telling him directly the same thing. And Srila Prabhupada is doing that with us in his purports. He's telling us directly. So in this way, the knowledge is passed on from person to person throughout time. It's the same knowledge. It's the same conversation, the same truth, the same Krishna, the same material energy. Just the different speakers and hearers are coming and going, but the knowledge is there eternally. And it's very heavy stuff for those of us that are attached and bewildered and become distracted by the material energy. To hear these things, it's very heavy. It weighs very heavily, but it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary if we're going to recognize when the material energy is encroaching on the spirit. The spirit is becoming bewildered and distracted by the allurements of the material energy. So it's very important to hear this, not just once, but many times. So there's this ongoing conversation. And text 41. When the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruitive activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions, but unfortunately cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. So sometimes people do welfare work. They have a fruitive mentality. They want to accomplish something materially. They want to rearrange things materially so it's better, it's more comfortable, it's less disturbing, more peaceful, less cruelty, more compassion, like this. But if it's just based on the body, then there's a result for that. It's a very good result in terms of material energy. It's auspicious materially. They get to go to the higher planetary systems. But without that dimension of Krishna, that everything should be performed for Krishna, then they don't get back to Godhead, because the activity was still simply on the material plane. So that dimension has to be there, that devotional aspect to God, to Krishna, in order for a person to become situated in devotional service and to get free from the material modes of nature. Otherwise, just acting within the modes. It's a higher mode of goodness. Pious activities. But perpetually goes up and comes down. So devotional service is a whole nother thing, whole nother aspect. Now, when people perform these pious activities, they feel good about themselves. They feel like they have some worth, they feel like they've really accomplished something, they have that sense of satisfaction, and it's an illusion. Unless one makes that contact with the devotional energy of the Lord, the divine energy, it's an illusion. Just like the suffering is an illusion. Why is there suffering? Because identifying with the material body. Why is there this so-called euphoria, material euphoria? Identification with the body, with material nature. They're both illusory. And they both lead to repeated birth and death in these different cycles. Going up, coming down, going up, coming down. And all the while there's birth, death, old age, and disease. And the goal of life is missed, which is Krishna. Why? Because it's all a distraction. The suffering is a distraction. The so-called sense of achievement in material world, it's all distraction. Distraction from what? From Krishna. Prabhupada's commentary. In this regard, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Brahmatikon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. If one wanders for many millions of years, from the time of creation until the time of annihilation, one cannot get free from the path of material existence unless one receives the shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. And that's it right there. That's it. How do you get out of the cycle, this cycle of pious and impious, heavenly planets, hellish planets, middle planets? How do we get free of that? Shelter of the lotus feet of a pure devotee. They're Krishna's representatives. As a monkey takes shelter of the branch of a banyan tree and thinks he's enjoying, the conditioned soul, not knowing the real interest of his life, takes shelter of the path of karmakanda, fruit of activities. Sometimes he's elevated to the heavenly planets by such activities, and sometimes he again descends to earth. This is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Brahmanda Brahmite. However, if by Krishna consciousness one is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of a guru, by the mercy of Krishna, he receives lessons on how to execute devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In this way, he receives a clue of how to get out of his conditional struggle, continuous struggle, up and down within the material world. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is, one should approach a spiritual master. The Vedas declare, Tag Vidanartam Sagurameva Bigached. Samit Pani Strotiyam Brahmanishtam. This is a verse, Prabhupada quotes this verse. This is about the 5th or 6th time within the last several verses we've seen this verse. He quotes this verse a lot. And this is a translation. To understand these things properly, one must humbly approach, with firewood in hand, a spiritual master who is learned in the Vedas and firmly devoted to the absolute truth. You have to ask, why does he have firewood? Well, firewood is to light the sacrificial fires. Firewood is fuel. He must come with fuel, something to fuel the sacrificial fire. That must be his mentality, as he's come to fan the fire, to fuel it. The sacrificial fire, devotional fire. And what is that fire in this day and age? It's the fire of Sankirtan Yagna, the chanting of the holy name. He must come, approach the spiritual master, prepared to render service to him. And the mission of the spiritual master in our time is to propagate the Sankirtan. So he must come to the spiritual master prepared to engage in the Sankirtan. Then he can get free. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead advises, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he's seen the truth. Tadguram prapadyate jignasu shreya uttamam sabde pare cha nishnatam brahmanya upa samrashrayam. Any person who seriously desires to achieve real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master, take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of his spiritual master is he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead leave aside all material considerations, are understood to be a bona fide spiritual master. Similarly, Vishwanath Chakravarti, a great Vaishnava, also advises, Yasya prasadat Bhagavat prasadam. By mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of Krishna. This is the same advice given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Guru Krishna prasadi by Bhakti Lata Bij. This is essential. One must come to Krishna consciousness, and therefore one must take shelter of a pure devotee. Thus one becomes free from the clutches of matter. So, let's go back. The qualification of the spiritual master is he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and be able to convince others of these conclusions. They've taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations. That's a bona fide spiritual master. So we see that. We see that in A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We see that in bona fide spiritual master. He's explaining here what his qualifications are, and he has those qualifications. One must take shelter of such a person, and by hearing from Prabhupada, reading his purports, his translations, taking guidance from him and his sincere followers, then that's the path. That's the path back home, back to Godhead. Fortunate. That's all. Just fortunate. Text 42. Having summarized the teachings of Jad Bharat, Sukadeva Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, the path indicated by Jad Bharat is like the path followed by Garuda, the carrier of the Lord. And ordinary kings are just like flies. Flies cannot follow the path of Garuda, and to date none of the great kings and victorious leaders could follow this path of devotional service, not even mentally. Whoa, what a nice comparison. Whoa. He compares the teachings of Jad Bharat and the path of Jad Bharat like the path of Garuda, the carrier of the Lord. And that's what devotees do. They're carrying the Lord within their heart. The ordinary kings are like flies. Well, flies are like, they like nasty things. They cannot follow the path of Garuda. He says up to that point in time, which was 5,000 years ago, none of the great kings and victorious leaders could follow this path of devotional service, not even mentally. Prabhupada's commentary. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. Of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. The path of devotional service is very difficult, even for great kings who have conquered many enemies. Although these kings were victorious on the battlefield, they could not conquer the bodily conception. There are many big leaders, yogis, swamis, so-called incarnations, who are very much addicted to mental speculation and who are advertise themselves as perfect personalities. But they're not ultimately successful. The path of devotional service is undoubtedly very difficult to follow. But it becomes very easy if the candidate actually wants to follow the path of the Mahajan. In this age, there is the path of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared to deliver all fallen souls. This path is so simple and easy that everyone can take to it by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, Kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. We are very satisfied that this path is being opened by this Krishna conscious movement because so many Europeans and American boys and girls are taking the philosophy seriously and gradually attaining perfection. Wow. Yeah. Great kings conquered the world, can't take to this path. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone can. Lord Chaitanya has opened it up. Up to before Lord Chaitanya, it was very difficult to take to the path of devotional service. By Lord Chaitanya inaugurating the Harinam Sankirtan, that opens it up completely for everyone. People outside Vedic culture. Well, to speak of Brahman, they're all not in Vedic culture. Not even close. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and the whole, investing all his potencies, his personal energy, everything, he's personally present there in his holy name, then the Sankirtan is the express. It's the express route back to Godhead. It's the Krishna Express. Chaitanya Express. Just have to take advantage of it. But as Lord Chaitanya prays in his Shikshastika prayers, I'm so unfortunate I have no taste. So there's that. And there are offenses to be very carefully avoided in the chanting of the holy name. So there's that also. For those who take up the path, be careful of the offenses. And the topmost offense is to offend the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. So, offending the spiritual master and the sincere followers. That'll block one. That blocks a person in developing taste for the holy name. You get blocked. Because they have a taste for offending. They have a taste for offending and fault finding, then you're not going to have we're not going to have a taste for glorifying. Because we've got a taste for finding fault. Going for the so-called sores and wounds like flies do, instead of bees going for the honey. So we've got that fly-like taste. Text 43. But the cure is to keep chanting. That we do get the taste, and by the association of the pure devotees, because they are so merciful, to make progress in that path of actually getting a taste for the chanting. Text 43. Sukadeva Goswami continues. While in the prime of life, the great Maharaj Bharata gave up everything because he was fond of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Uttama Sloka. Gave up his beautiful wife, nice children, great friends, enormous empire. Although these things were very difficult to give up, Maharaj Bharata was so exalted that he gave them up just as one gives up stool after evacuating. Such was the greatness of His Majesty. You know he was getting a higher taste. He could give up all those things that everyone tries to get in the material world. He had them. He gave them all up just like it was stool. Just passed it out, gone. Not interested, no attraction whatsoever. In stool, it also implies repulsion. Found it repulsive. Just wanted to get rid of it. So it's been enjoyed, and now it is not enjoyable anymore. Something else is much more attractive. Prabhupada's commentary, the name of God is Krishna, because he is so attractive that the pure devotee can give up everything within this material world on his behalf. Maharaj Bharata was an ideal king, instructor, and emperor of the world. He possessed all the opulences of the material world, but Krishna is so attractive that he attracted Maharaj Bharata from all his material possessions. Yet somehow or other the king became affectionate to a little deer, falling from his position, had to accept the body of a deer in his next life. Due to Krishna's great mercy upon him, he could not forget his position, and he could understand how he had fallen. Therefore, in the next life, as Jad Bharat, Maharaj Bharata was careful not to spoil his energy. He presented himself as a deaf and dumb person. In this way, he could concentrate on his devotional service. We have to learn from the great King Bharata how to become cautious in cultivating Krishna consciousness. A little inattention will retard our devotional service for the time being. Yet, any service rendered to the personality of Godhead is never lost. Swapamapyasya dharmasya trate mahatobhayat. A little devotional service rendered sincerely is a permanent asset. So there's that point being made again, that if there is a little distraction, something does happen, and deviated from the path of devotion while trying to perfect one's life in Krishna consciousness, then it's whatever one did is not lost. And when they resume from the point that they left off. But who wants to be sidetracked? I mean, that sidetrack for Maharaj Bharata was one lifetime, but for someone else it could be thousands of lifetimes, because one thing leads to another in the material world. So Maharaj Bharata had the benediction that he could remember what happened even while he was in a deer's body. So when that body was finished and he was allowed to take birth in a human form, he had full recognition of everything that happened. And so he was very cautious not to become sidetracked again. But who knows if that would happen for everyone. I mean, Maharaj Bharata had made huge, tremendous strides in devotional service and renunciation. And so just that one little kind of soft, weak spot was there that he felt he needed to protect a deer. It was a bodily conception. And the problem is, he became distracted from his devotional practice to do it. So that was the actual problem, is that his attachment from the deer distracted him from performing. He'd be sitting there meditating, and the deer would come and, like kind of nuzzle him and stuff, and then he would get distracted from his devotional practice, and he'd just be concentrating on this interaction with this animal on a bodily level. So that was the problem. Not that wanting to protect the living entity was a horrible thing, but he didn't protect his devotional service to do it. He lost his own devotional service. He got dragged into material consciousness. What is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, the road back to Godhead is paved with devotional service. So, surrender to Krishna. Don't get these distractions. They come in so many different ways, these distractions. I'm distracted so easily by the material energy. I want to get fixed, really fixed in Krishna consciousness. So fixed that we can communicate with the Lord within the heart. And He'll give direction. Do this, don't do that. Uh-oh, watch out for this. No, that's okay. Go ahead and do that. He'll give direction. What's favorable for approaching Him and what is not favorable, He'll tell us how to reject and avoid. How to remain transcendental in all situations by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And for that, to get to that point, we have to take shelter of His pure representative, His pure devotee, who is the external manifestation of the Lord within the heart. So, a little inattention will retard our devotional service for the time being. Yet any service to the personality of Godhead is never lost. A little devotion service rendered sincerely is a permanent asset. Somehow or other, if one is attracted to Krishna, whatever he does in devotional service is a permanent asset. If one falls down due to immaturity, bad association, his devotional assets are never lost. There are many examples of this. Ajamil, Maharaj Bharat, and many others. This Krishna consciousness movement is giving everyone a chance to engage in devotional service for at least some time. A little service will give one an impetus to advance and thus make one's life successful. Oh, Krishna. Not everyone take up the path of devotional service and engage. Prabhupada has the understanding that not everyone's going to be able to stay strictly focused. They are going to get distracted. In previous verses, Prabhupada said they'll even become thieves. Those that take up devotional service, some of them will fall down and actually steal and cause a problem within the society. That's going to go on too. He saw all of that, and still, he didn't see those as faults or imperfections. He saw the movement as giving this great opportunity to everyone. Give them a chance to engage in devotional service. And whatever they do is never lost. And when they take it up again, they take up from where they left off. He also said that if he could make one pure devotee by his efforts, that his whole movement was a complete success. He's depending on Krishna. So kind to give everyone the opportunity to engage at least for some time, because it's never lost. Such mercy, such incredible mercy. And it goes, that mercy extends to the slightest little thing, just eating a little piece of cookie that's been offered to the Lord, or holding the door open for a devotee carrying an armful of Bhagavad Gitas, or whatever. Devotional service. It's Hare Krishna movement. Establishing the deities within the temples. Festivals, Sunday programs. person can build their whole life around the temple community. What to speak of those who are engaged, at least for some time, in direct service to the deity within the temple. So merciful. Prabhupada's commentary continued. In this verse, the Lord is described as Uttama Sloka. Uttama means the best, and Sloka means reputation. Lord Krishna is full in 6 opulences, one of which is reputation. That's fame. Aishvaryasya samagrasya virasya yasya shriya. Krishna's reputation is still expanding. We are spreading the glories of Krishna by pushing forward this Krishna consciousness movement. Krishna's reputation, 5,000 years after the Battle of Kurukshetra, is still expanding throughout the world. Every important individual within this world must have heard of Krishna, especially at the present moment, due to the Krishna consciousness movement. Even people who do not like us and want to suppress the movement are also somehow or other chanting Hare Krishna. They say, the Hare Krishna people should be chastised. Such foolish people do not realize the true value of this movement, but the mere fact that they want to criticize it gives them a chance to chant Hare Krishna, and this is its success. Just see how totally, completely, absolute and perfect this Krishna consciousness movement is. And even those who speak against it, at least they're saying something to Krishna and about Krishna. It's better than never coming into contact with Krishna or Krishna's devotees and just wandering completely at the mercy of the 3 modes of material nature. But here, they meet Krishna, they're so unfortunate, they can't take advantage properly, but they get some mercy. They said something to Krishna. They opened up the dialogue, and they will get another chance to say something else, and one day they'll say, oh yes, Hare Krishna. I experienced that when we were distributing books. At first, it was very disheartening to have people say, no, I don't want that, or, oh, I don't believe in that, or the different things that they say in negativity, or worse, actually blaspheme the holy names, say the holy names, or vain repetition. I did say horrible things. But then I realized that this was a pastime that the Lord was having in his form as the holy name and his pastime incarnation as a book, literary incarnation, is that he was giving them an opportunity to say something to him, even if it was unfavorable, just like Prabhupada says here. The mere fact that they want to criticize gives them a chance to chant Hare Krishna, and that's success. They said Hare Krishna. They became conscious of Krishna, not particularly favorably at this time, but Krishna has entered their consciousness. So we know people who remain unfavorable, then they stand a chance for liberation. They don't get devotional service, but they stand a chance for liberation. By becoming opposed to Krishna, they can actually become liberated, which is not particularly attractive for devotees, but from the platform of liberation, it is possible to enter into devotional service, and there is relief from material suffering of the modes of nature. It's just that it's not very blissful and there's nothing to do. It's like, you've been bad, but what we're going to do is we're not going to torture you, but you're going to just go sit in the corner and not do anything for a little while, and maybe you'll reconsider. We'll give you some time to reconsider what the goal of life might actually be. And when you come out, maybe you'll be ready to take advantage nicely, because all your karmic reactions for all your nonsense will have been wiped clean, and you'll have a fresh slate. So you might be in a good position to, instead of having to deal with all the karmic stuff that was accumulated, you've been liberated. The karma's gone. So when you start again in your activities, maybe you'll have a good opportunity to take advantage of devotion and actually recognize Krishna. But that's the great mercy of this movement. Even the slightest little thing, or even criticism, or making fun of, or being silly. There was one Indian man that I was talking with a while ago, and he was he had a lot of respect for Hare Krishna movement now. A lot of respect when, the shaved heads and the tilak and the chanting in the street. His heart was really moved. He was very attracted because he had realized how powerful and potent this movement really is for spreading Krishna consciousness. But before he realized that, he didn't take it very seriously. And he told me that one time, as a joke, within his Hindu temple, he and some of his friends, they put like stocking caps on their head and left a little hair hanging out so it looked like sikas. And they wore orange clothing, and they had kartals and drums. And they ran through their Hindu temple chanting Hare Krishna. But they were making fun. It was actually, I think he said it was Halloween. So he was making a joke. But later he told me he saw now the joke was on him because he was chanting Hare Krishna and he got purified. He was making a joke. He did that in his Hindu temple, making a joke. But then years later, he was very reverential and he made arrangements for devotees to give programs. He was able to engage in devotional service. So these things are going on. And this is the pastimes of the Lord, and his form is the holy name. And he has pastimes in his book form also. How powerful this movement is. There was a story about one devotee who, they were a thief. This was before they were a devotee. They were just roaming the streets trying to steal things. And they used to actually break into cars and steal them. And then, you get money for it. You bring it to the underground place where they take the parts and everything, and everybody makes money. So he was stealing people's cars. So he broke into a car. He was driving away with it to steal it. And there was a magazine. It was a Back to Godhead in the car. He read it. He became a devotee. No more stealing. He read that magazine. So he joined the temple, became a brahmachari, and became very expert in distributing books. Very determined, because he'd experienced firsthand his own transformation just by coming in contact with the devotional literature coming out of the Hare Krishna movement, Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan. And this is ISKCON's a very virulent branch of Lord Chaitanya's movement. It's a lot of potency in Prabhupada's efforts to spread Krishna consciousness. And the whole Chaitanya movement has become enlivened by Prabhupada's preaching and the efforts of his disciples and his sincere followers. So, such foolish people do not realize the true value of this movement, that it gives them a chance to chant Hare Krishna, even though they're criticizing. This is its success. Now that's faith in the holy name of the Lord. That's pure devotion to the holy name of the Lord, no doubt. Okay, this is text 44. Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, the activities of Bharata Maharaj are wonderful. He gave up everything it's difficult for others to give up." Oh. Didn't we just read that? No. It's a similar verse. It's similar to the last verse, but it's not the same. He gave up his kingdom, his wife, his family. His opulence was so great that even the demigods envied it, yet he gave it up. He was quite befitting a great personality like him to be a great devotee. He could renounce everything because he was so attracted to the beauty, opulence, reputation, knowledge, strength, and renunciation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Yeah, now that's an interesting point. He didn't give all that up because he was suffering and miserable and wanted relief from his poverty-stricken condition. A lot of devotees come because they're suffering. He didn't come to Krishna consciousness and give up everything because he was suffering. On the other hand, he was enjoying opulence that even the demigods were envious of. So he wasn't coming from a miserable condition and, oh, please help me. He wasn't like that at all. He had so much opulence, but when he saw the opulence of the Lord, his own opulence had no attraction for him anymore, because the opulence of the Lord was infinitely so much greater. He became attracted to the Krishna because of his opulence. He was so attracted, and what's Krishna's opulence? His beauty, his reputation, his knowledge, his strength, and his renunciation. He became attracted to the personality of Godhead. And his own situation looked pale to him in comparison. It just paled. It didn't really bring him the kind of ecstasy and pleasure that he was experiencing by coming into contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wasn't trying to compete with the Lord. He didn't want to compete with the Lord. He wanted to serve the Lord. He wanted to serve someone like that, who was worthy of service. Krishna is so attractive that one can give up all desirable things for his sake. Indeed, even liberation is considered insignificant for those whose minds are attracted to the loving service of the Lord.